Welcome back to your favorite convention-related podcast, Con Job. This week, Jeremy, and Dylan are going to be doing a little bit of, some tips here on how to choose the right con. We talk about, the tips that we use for selecting which convention we want to go to when we're adding new shows. We talk about the things that we look for, how to find the cons. Talk about locations. We talk about all kinds of different stuff regarding that topic. So hope you guys enjoy. All right, guys, we're back. So Jeremy, Dylan, hello.
What's up?
What's up, yo? So today we wanted to talk about a specific topic and then just kind of ramble on about it, which is apparently what we do based on our last title. If you saw the last the last post, it was just random.
That vendor tip. That was a vendor ramble for sure.
Just a ramble. So we're gonna do some more of that today. So it really just kind of based around choosing which conventions we go to. Audience size, location, any red flags that we look for. So who wants to kick us off? I mean, I guess Dylan, you do 612 shows every other week. I'd say per month. So how do you decide? Oh, I'm sorry. I was way off. 610. My fault.
You know what? I think when I really did some research, there's about 300 events in this industry a year. And I mean, some of them totally not worth going to, but out of those 300, we kind of narrowed it down to about 100 to 150. We're doing less and less now, but doubling down on the ones that have been good. But we didn't always do that. I mean, my first year I did 3, and then the year after that we did a little over 20. And then after that we really spiked up. And so, yeah, it was a very expensive lesson in learning what's worth going to. And so I got a few ideas, at least that work for me, why we say yes to this or no to that, especially if it's a new show or anything. But there's a lot of sites out there. If you just Google like Comic-Cons in the US, there's a couple of them that just kind of break down all of them. My kind of barometer is, what's the guest list look like? I know we always talk about, if guests take money away from the vendor floor, but if there's no guests or if the biggest guest is a cosplayer, that's probably maybe not a red flag, but that's something to look at. What I always do, more important than if a show says their attendance is 30,000 or 5,000, what's most important to me is just YouTubing a walkthrough video of the previous year, and I'll just kind of scrub through that. And man, that just seeing that tells me more than anything. Promotional site on a show amount, but
I think the website I use is called FanCons, and that one lists everything. Yeah. Everywhere in the world, so you can narrow it down. It's got little filters and stuff, so it's really good to use. So go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to say, I'm not sure, I feel like I've said it on here before, but I definitely do the YouTube thing a lot. But using a site like FanCons, I like to go through and kind of narrow things down, because it also does it by genre. Like, I'm not super, like, we don't do a lot of anime shows. We've never done like an anime specific show, just because we don't have a ton of that product, and you can kind of filter those out. But even though some of those like borderline shows, it helps to just hop on YouTube and see. I think another thing that goes hand in hand with that is if you go to social media for whatever show, say they announce a guest, you can see what kind of reaction those are getting, because if the way the algorithms are working now, unless you're really following one of these shows or are likely to go to one of these shows, you're not going to see a post. You're not going to interact with a post. So I was just thinking, I saw SC Comic Con announced Sting is going to be there yesterday, I think it was. And yeah, and he's a big get. That's a big guest. He's doing shows, but this is like his last year.
Pulling out the stops. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so like this is like his last year he's going to be doing anything in the face paint, and so everybody's trying to get this last minute thing.
Will he just be Steve from then on?
After that, it's just Steve.
Yeah.
It's Steve.
But the reaction that their post got was crazy. So if you're looking at doing a show like SC Comic Cons, I think their rebook rate's crazy every year.
Yeah, they're like 99.
But
yeah.
A show that if you're not familiar with, you see that and you're like, I mean, to me, it's an instant green flag. Like, oh, this good guest got announced and they're having this good engagement. Flip side is I got an email from a promoter saying they're starting up a new type of show. A couple states over, it would have required a hotel. I went to their social media page. They have 2 likes, 2 followers. There's a post saying we're looking for vendors, and that's it. And that was, for the last month or two. So to me, that's like even though it's run by someone that promotes decent shows, like they don't have any traction on this one. So I'm definitely not doing that.
Yeah, that's actually, I never thought about Meg does that a lot when I go on fan cons. I look for shows in areas that we haven't really done much in, as long as they're not like in I try to stay out of like malls, and I try to stay out of hotel convention centers, which some of them can be good, don't get me wrong, but I try to stay out of those. So then I usually ask her, hey, what about this one? And she'll always, let me check their Instagram. Oh, they got 17 followers. It's like, oh, okay. So that makes a big difference right there. So that's a good thing to point out.
So my use case with Instagram is I've almost only follow conventions at this point on the business Instagram. So my feed is nothing but con stuff, and so that's one good thing. But another thing, one way I found a lot of shows is I found a couple of vendors that I like, respect and like, and I just kind of went to see who they follow, and I see that they follow this show, this show, this show, this show. So I'm like, all right, well, like now this is more on my radar, not just I see this on FanCon or whatever we said, but this vendor, and maybe I'll reach out like, how was that? So if you like or respect any vendor, just see what shows they go to and then ask them about it, and that's already giving you a leg up into how you think the show will do versus just going in blind.
Yeah. I do think having those... Oh.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, having those relationships with people that you can actually ask is always good too, because it's hard to ask someone what a good show is if you don't really understand what that means to them also.
Do you guys ever look at the guests? Like, I know you said Sting is a big one, but do you, like, for example, we have a lot of Disney stuff. So anytime I see the princesses at a show, I'm 99.9% of the time, regardless of this, I don't even really look at anything else. I just go, oh, we're in, because if they're always bringing in people, and people are going to buy our stuff to go get signed by them, generally speaking.
No, absolutely. So that's like the first link I click. And I praise some websites. It's like in the front page says where it's at, the location, hours, everything, which I wish everyone did. I hate hunting for hours. But then immediately go to the guest list. And for sure, and for me, it's video game stuff. We got video game voice actors. Like that's our bread and butter. So for sure.
I think for us, it's... I want to check and make sure they have a healthy guest list. That's really all I'm looking for. I don't look for any genre, because we're pretty broad.
I agree with that. But if you see one that you have a bunch of stuff of, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, just in terms of, as long as they have like some relatively decent sized names, you're not going to go if it's just all smallish voice actors or like only comic book artists.
We've done really well at shows with 100 guests, and even with a whole bunch of big names like that, I think there is a certain point to where it can suck me. I think other vendors are the ones that are more of a threat to taking money away from a vendor, personally. But
yeah,
I look at, like, if there's, I do enjoy a show. Like if you have 15 guests and you have like one major one and then a couple of mid-range ones, I view that as like a healthy amount depending on how many vendors there are. Because if you also have 500 vendors, it's not really great either for me. So I look at the guest list. What I don't want to see, a red flag for me there, is like if you have like a cast reunion from some like, you know, D tier movie from the 80s that just has no public presence. It might be cool. I might also like those people, but those people aren't going to draw like our customers. Like that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that would draw regardless, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like it's the guests are the ones that bring the people in the door, right? And
Yeah.
it's obviously our job at that point to take the money from them, essentially. So, I mean, obviously you want bigger names, but I mean, like you said, some of those D movies, some of those can have such a cult following. I mean, look at what's that one with Starship Troopers? The movie's freaking awful, but it's got like a cult following. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
But is Starship Troopers going to bring people to your booth?
I don't know. It's one of those. It has such a cult following. Do people want to go meet them? I mean, if they're charging 120 for an autograph, probably not. But if they're charging 40, maybe. But you're right. I mean, it's one thing you got to kind of weigh out. So that's why this is a tips for selecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think the biggest thing that you like you mentioned too is the YouTube videos. Like, I mean, Dylan, you probably look a lot at that more than I do, probably because you do so many. Are you able to find one for every show, or is it like 80%? Is it a large amount of shows
I'd say
that you do that you can find one?
80. I would say 80% of the one. If I'm looking at a YouTube video, it's something that it's a new show, so I'm not looking really at a YouTube video for Emerald City Comic Con because I've done it 3 years in a row, and that's a different vetting process. But for new show, I would say even if it's a first year, obviously there's no thing, and if it's maybe even a second year, it almost might turn you off. But I'm like, I don't know. Now I'm feeling it out. Maybe the guest list looks a little better than it did last year, so. It's the previous year isn't law that.
And the first year's not always great anyway, so it's not really a good time to judge a show. You gotta go 2-3 years in before you can really go, okay, this is really what it's gonna be. I think. I mean, there are some shows where the first year they have it, everyone goes and like, oh wow, this is great, and then they never go again. I've done shows where the first year was fantastic, and then you go back the next year, it's like, geez, there's nobody here. So I don't know if they didn't advertise or if people just didn't want to come or what. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved there. So when do you, I don't even know if we could tell this, but a first year show, it's impossible, but any other shows after the first year, how do you view their audience size? Like when they say, oh, we had 50,000 people. I mean, everybody bloats those numbers significantly. So what are your thoughts on that?
I used to really put a lot of weight into what I could decipher as attendance. Now,
because I've seen your spreadsheet. I know you have that column.
And how many of them just have question marks or
question mark,
small
large,
plus? So it's
small,
like, we have it there, but it's honestly.
Is it a guesstimate that you or the helpers put in there, or how do you?
If there is a certain number, then we found it somewhere, like somewhere on Wikipedia, or they boasted that it had 5,000. If there's no number, then I'm basing it off of what I'm seeing when I saw a walkthrough video, or if I'm not seeing anything about attendance, I might just call it. We base shows on level 1, 2, 3 special. Special being something like New York, 1, 2, 3 being our range, and that kind of tells us how to pack. And so small level 1 show. That's just kind of our internal system.
Do you guys ever look at, when you're looking at these videos and deciding to do a show, does the size of the hall ever come into that? Because if it's, to me, I don't know, if there's people there and it's a small hall, I would almost rather have that sometimes than a New York where you have 10,000 vendors but you have 100,000 people. Because
I personally, one of my things that I like to hear the least is that someone expanded.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Same. Or
that
added
drives me crazy.
That's
we added another 50 million square feet to the room to get all these people in here, and then next thing you know, it's Saturday and there's 8 people on each aisle. Like, cool, good, love this. I'm glad I paid more for this booth. It's that I personally, if I see a small hall that's full of people, I'm with you. That's the show that I want to be at.
It's much better, I've found, to be a bigger fish in a small pond than, because you might be a big fish and then you go to MegaCon or New York and then it's like, oh no, there's 60 by 60 booths that have giant statues. Like, yeah, it's a lot harder to stand out there than those.
Yeah, it's hard to do anything when there's a 200-foot Luffy in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that how that expression goes? Or that's literal?
Yes. Yes. I remember the first time I went to New York, freaking, I don't know, 15 years ago now or whatever it was, and I was just, I couldn't believe the scope of that thing. But yeah, it's I enjoy being in a small room, and you're talking from a business perspective. New York's more expensive, MegaCon's more expensive, and it's harder to stand out. I mean, even if you make a lot of money, it's great. But like, if I'm looking for new shows, like everybody knows about New York, everybody knows about MegaCon.
Yeah, I'm always looking for new ones. That's kind of like I had one this past weekend. It was a little 2-day show called Happy Valley Comic Con, and we do Philly, which is like 4 hours away from there. It's right at Penn State, so I was like, oh, I'll go, just try. It's me. I'll fly out Friday and fly home Sunday, and it was. I mean, and Saturday was actually okay. I wouldn't even say it was good. It was okay. So I said, okay, if I can have two okay. I mean, it was like $240 for a booth. You know, and I'm like, you never know. You never know. I was off the weekend, so I was like, let's just see. And Sunday was, I mean, it was terrible. So it was obviously not worth. I made money, but at the end of the day, it was just a little bit. So was it really worth? Even Meg was like, she's like, I know you're not the one making the art, but I feel like you could have been more valuable home than what we made there. So
you could have been doing some floors or
she's something. Like, you could have definitely been picking the weeds. You could have washed my car. You could have made me breakfast. The usual. You could have you could have fluffed my pillow while I'm laying there.
How much does that pay?
$0 an hour.
Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
In 22 and 23, I feel like I had a much more focus on total sales than profits. And right now I'm always screaming profit, profit, profit. But here was my thought process.
That's the only key in my opinion too.
Well, so I knew, having basically grown the online side, I really wanted, if I could hit a certain number, I could have easier luck figuring out how to do it again and again cheaper. So I was kind of chasing a really big number. I'm like, all right, let's experiment. If this is here, now this, and then through scale, things got cheaper. So earlier I was more interested, and I was in a good place where I could focus on big numbers. And now it's figuring out how to make everything more profitable. And now we're like, okay, now we don't need to do that show. It was an expensive lesson, but I learned a lot trying to chase that big number. Now flip it.
Yep. And I think that's part of the refinement process for finding these new shows, right? It's looking at the experience you've had chasing big numbers versus profit and seeing what's worked. And like for us, we know if a show is got kind of like a Midwest vibe to it, like our stuff just typically does better there than it would at other places. Like, we go out west and we have like a different segment that sells well out there, so we take different stuff. It's going to somewhere where we're flying, we have to adjust what we're bringing that way, and it's is this show worth driving to and making a lot more money, or flying and we're just gonna try to squeeze the profit out of it, like that sort of thing.
So I want to save that. Go ahead.
If you had 2 shows that you could potentially go, but you could only go to one in the weekend, if you could boil it down to just one deciding factor, is it profit? Is it easeability? Like what is, you can do this one show or this show?
Wow.
So
I would say
there's so much nuance there.
Yeah, I would say probably profit. But it also, I mean, if we're talking about I'm in Florida, if we're talking about going to Georgia for one, that's going to be like just more of a pain versus going to Alaska and making more money, I wouldn't want to fly to Alaska again versus
Also,
Georgia. So that would
it's
go in
what
the easability one, right?
do you have a show immediately after that or before that
Yeah.
that affects that sort of thing? I don't know. It's hard to be so. I think one good thing, if you'll serve yourself well if you're flexible and you're able to go with the flow and work with different things, because also part of finding a new show is determining, like, the one corner, if you can get it, is $2,500 for this show. Is that, do I want to pay for two booths, or am I good with one corner, or whatever that is like? So it's hard to say. I think I like the money, but I can't have every show be the money show. Sometimes it has to be a little bit convenient too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have a question though. What do you guys look at, or do you look at location? So, for example, we did last year, like Dylan, I don't know if this really applies to you because you do, out of your 610 shows, you do 580 in the state of Texas. And I know Texas is huge, but you may do 12 in Dallas alone, Dallas, Fort Worth. Whereas, do you ever feel like it's oversaturation? Because we have seen, like, we did some shows in the Northwest, like in North California, like San Francisco, San Jose, all that area. And we had some of the gallery shows and some Comic Cons and stuff like that. And we had people come in like the third or fourth show we were done, and they're like, "Oh, were you at GalaxyCon? Oh, were you at the Amazing Art Expo?" And it's like, yeah. And it's like, "Oh yeah, I bought from you there." And yes, we do have some new stuff, but maybe it didn't appeal to, that particular thing didn't appeal to them. So it's like, oh, well. So talk to me, Goose.
My answer, which is, if there was a Dallas show every month, I
would never leave.
I
never
would
leave
book
the
it
state
without thinking about it. But there's a nuance to that, in that I'm in a pretty good spot where because I don't do as many shows myself, I'm constantly designing. And so I try to have at least something, whether it's one design or a completely new backdrop, every time I come back to the same location. Our backdrop changes every 6 months. That usually means we swap 30 bad designs with 30 new designs, and we're constantly changing. So even if we're always having something for them to at least stop by.
Does that mean you're buying new backdrops too? I like that.
Every 6 months or so. And
Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
But yeah, man. So you got to mix it up. So for me, I'm like, I had a good show at this location. Let me hit up every show in this location. Let me, as long as I'm doing my job, which now that I'm traveling less, my job is to make sure every show is a little bit different. So that's my answer.
But when you say make sure my show's a little bit different, what do you mean by that? Because it's prints and, I know you have the mystery box, but are you really changing up the entire setup other than the backdrop and what you're displaying? I mean, what you're selling?
Really soon, I want to have a whole pod, and it'll be real riveting stuff, but it's about square statistics and how I feel like a lot of vendors don't use that. And I will see, we have 140 designs at all times, plus other, like, those are the art pieces. And so I can always see what my bottom 30 are. And after 6 months, I'm like, if something's in the bottom 30 for that next show, I'll swap that out. Even though my backdrop is displaying it on display, I'm showing something new, and we're pushing that. And so I'm always offering new things, even if it's not on the backdrop, in the front, and be like, oh, here's our new things right here. So yeah, and statistics lead, oh my god, this fandom is working really well, let's expand that. Or nobody's touched this Half-Life poster just by how much I like it. All right, we got to give that one the axe, and let me focus on something else, as opposed to kind of just that feeling of I don't want to see this design go, but the people have spoken.
Yeah. So that's to me that's a whole nother pod then. That, yeah, like you said, it's just a kind of when to switch things up and based on sales and stuff.
Yeah, for us, so being based in Greenville, South Carolina, we are super saturated here. We do some years it's been like 4 shows in one building, and the crowd, we don't have, it's just not the size of Dallas. Plus we have a kiosk at Borderlands, which is run by the same people that run SC Comic Con. And so one thing that we get is we'll do SC Junior, their one-day show at the end of the year. And we'll get the people coming through. Everybody wants to say hi and say hello. But everybody's like, oh, I picked up this from the store. I got this and this from the store. Or I saw you back in the spring, which is great to like get to see the people because they don't realize that we're based in town most of the time. But we've taken to sort of the same deal as Dylan. We are, anything new doesn't go to the store until after we do the spring show. So whatever we have ready in April, once that stuff debuts at that show, then all of those new designs start going to the store. Because without that, we do get that same, oh, we picked this up at the store, did this, which is great. It's year-round sales. I love that. And it's better than doing 3 or 4 shows in one building. That said, we will do shows in and around like Indiana, Illinois, even Florida, Texas, like all of those. It seems like you can't do too much. So I'm with Dylan there. Texas is a good resource. There's just so many people, and you can drive 30 minutes an hour and it'd be a completely different crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think it all depends on where you're out of. Also, well, I'll hold on to that one for later. But yeah, it just depends on where you're at. So if you're in a town, like Greenville's not small, but it's also not big, right? So we don't have the ability to support as many shows as a Dallas-Fort Worth area.
That makes sense. I asked you guys what the number one answer was if you had 2 choices. And then I was like, well, what's mine? And then I thought, okay, I think I just wrote it down. I think there's 4 things I'd choose. And you're right, there is no one answer. Like, it's profit. Oh, not if you're having to fly to Alaska. So it's it. So I think my 4 points are risk, which is price, whether that's just the booth price or that's you got to fly somebody here, you got to pay somebody to go there, you got to do the hotel, just the upfront cost. Ease is a really big point for me. So sending somebody there, ease is great. That changes things. Or if it's in my backyard, there's the ease. Profit, if the profit is there, I will say, who cares about a lot of the other things if the profit is there? We'll just make it happen. And then what you said, Jeremy, opportunity costs. Like, well, what about if you're doing another show the next weekend? Does that harm that? So, I mean, those are the 4 points. And so there's, imagine like a circle trying to make all those points work. That's my barometer. I just realized.
Yeah, I think the hard part is, and I guess trying to stick to the topic. It's when you're finding new shows, profit. Throw it out the window because you don't know, right? Like, so you're asking trusted people that know your business. I think the worst thing you could do is ask like a Funko vendor if you sell original art, right? So it's like
they sell original Funko.
Or if you are a Funko vendor, you might not want to ask another one because they may lie to you. Like, that's another aspect to this whole thing is, I've found that when people are doing well, they will let you know, and when they're not doing well, they will let you think that they're doing well, right? Like, nobody's doing bad, which is understandable. But just find people you trust, do the YouTube thing. I will say, Ryan, I guess you don't do a lot of the YouTube stuff. The hardest part about
this is on YouTube. What are we?
You don't look for shows on YouTube. Good. I think the hardest part about that is wading through the cosplay videos. Every time you search for a show, it's
a music video.
whatever cosplay music video, and you don't let me show this show floor. It's like, but honestly, that could be a sign too in itself. It's like if all of these people that are actually doing something don't even include the show floor in it, like, are there going to be people? You know, so it's like you have to look for the things that aren't there just as much as the things that are there. So if it's a show that's saying we get 10,000 people and you can't find a video of the show floor, is it right?
Mm-hmm.
So, not to say that it's that's the right answer for everything, but yeah, I think a lot of it's just trying to figure out. It's talking to people. It's saying, Dylan, you've done 600 shows this year.
Stop, guys.
What's your take on this
not
one?
even that case.
Sorry,
this month.
It's a lot.
This month.
But yeah, it's the profit thing is so hard because it's all made up, right? Like until you do it, it's not real. It's all forecast.
Right.
So Dylan is definitely in the zone when he's talking about using his Square stuff. I have a feeling Dylan can forecast a show pretty well. If this is this, and then if this is this, this is kind of the end result. Because if you're following the numbers versus your feelings, it's a lot more consistent. That's one thing. Don't do a show just because you think it'll be a fun show. Sometimes fun shows don't always make money.
Yeah.
Right. Also, attendance does not equal better. I would say for anybody starting, do local. Like get that if your first show, make that risk as low as possible. You have not a lot to lose. But for instance, my first show was in Vegas, and I live in Vegas, and I thought, oh my god, their attendance is 30,000. And we did this. This is amazing. All right, in a month, there's WonderCon, and that has 75,000. So I was like, we're going to do 2.5 times better. And attendance does not equal that. So, like, you make that risk as low as possible when you're starting out.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot more you can think about that you have a hard time even putting on paper to figure out. And yeah, just keep that risk low.
Yeah. Or if you're rich, just do everything you can.
Yeah, exactly. Do every show that's in all 610 that Dylan does.
Yeah.
Per month. All right. Well, I think that's a lot of good info. Hopefully everybody agrees. And if they don't, we tried. So
we tried.
Yeah. An attempt was made.
So
use the info because I can tell you right now it works. We're three examples that it works.
Was it FanCons?
FanCons, yeah, fancons.com.
Another YouTube a lot. There's another one for people in the South. Was it the Southern Fandom Resource Guide?
Yep.
Something like that.
I've seen that one. Yeah. I've seen
That's
that
a good one. It's a very basic calendar.
And at the end of the day, if you're ever not sure, ask a vendor or throw a message in one of our chats somewhere, and one of us will answer or somebody will answer. Because if you're just questioning about a show, I can promise you, Dylan's probably already done it.
There you go.
So, for better or worse.
Yeah, and we'll be honest. We're not going to tell you it's great if it sucks. So, but yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.
Next week.
We'll talk about Emerald City, maybe.
Oh yeah. All right. Cool. All right, and Lexington.
Oh yeah, can't forget that one.
Yeah.
All right.
See you guys.
See ya.